my name is Arkthepenguin, and last year's top 10 was horrible. Looking back on it, I'm still confused why I included some games over others, such as Red Dead Redemption 2. Why wasn't that on the list? And what's even weirder is that Red Dead Redemption 2 is literally on every other list I've ever made. So this year I have made sure that every single honorable mention on this list is an actual honorable mention, and not just an honorable mention means it's not a Nintendo game, so it's not on the list. And of course, my opinions might change. But even while I was writing last year's top 10, I didn't agree with many of the opinions that I stated in that video. So this time, let's try and not do that. So here you go, here's the list. I like it.
Before we get into the actual list, let's talk about some other games that I played this year. Both the good and the bad, and the okay, and the mediocre, and the fine, and the... yeah. I rebeat Mario Galaxy when I reclaimed it back in April. It's still probably my all-time favorite platformer, and I know that's generic, but I honestly could not care any less. I mean, the level design is amazing, the music is incredible, the atmosphere is phantasmagoric, I love it. Also replayed one of my all-time favorite games, Xenoblade Chronicles. Still holds up alright. I mean, it can be a bit clunky at times, but I mean, I still really love it. Also replayed an old indie game I played on my channel around 2 years ago, Fractured Minds. Honestly, it's not as good as I remember, but I mean, I still really like it and have a lot of nostalgia for it. This was also the year that I realized that I don't think I'm a Fallout guy. Last year I played Fallout 4 and I didn't really like it that much. At one point I hated it and I even called it one of the worst AAA games I ever played. But after playing New Vegas and 3, I realized that I don't think I like Fallout that much in general. I still kind of like it. I can have fun with all 3 of the games, especially New Vegas, which is definitely my favorite in the series. But I unfortunately don't consider myself to be a Fallout fan. Played 2 really solid top-down Zelda games, Link to the Past and the Link's Awakening remake. Both super good. Sonic Generations was so close to making it on the main list. So were all the Animal Crossing games I played this year. After playing New Horizons, I decided to give the other games in the series a shot, specifically all of these ones. I was gonna buy City Folk, but I just ended up rebuying the first Xenoblade. The same day I rebought Xenoblade, I also bought another old childhood game of mine, New Super Mario Bros. Wii, and I later bought the original New Super in August. I also ended up buying Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance alongside those games too. And that was also a fun time. Definitely don't like it as the original 2 Kingdom Hearts games. I haven't played the third one yet. Definitely gonna get around to that this year. Played a lot more Super Mario Maker 2 this year since I finally got a copy of it for myself. And oh man, is this game awesome. Honestly, if I hadn't played it a lot before, it would most definitely be on this list. I replayed an absolute boatload of Elder Scrolls this year, specifically Morrowind, which is still one of my all-time favorites. Sekiro 2. And of course, what would a year be without replaying Ni no Kuni for the 80th time? Fable was another one I played this year that I really liked for the first time. So was Super Mario 3D Land, Mario + Rabbids Kingdom Battle. New Pokemon Snap was awesome, and I was pretty happy with how that video I made on it turned out. Oh yeah, also I got a PS4 at the end of the year or something like that.
And keep in mind, this is all in 1 year, and that's not even including the stuff I got for Christmas. You'll hear way more about that after my birthday. In fact, I played so many good games this year that not only was it extremely difficult to narrow it down to only 10 games, but I was originally going to do a top 12 as the 12 days of Christmas, a game each day. And I am definitely going to be doing that next year. But this year, unfortunately, my time management was not that good. So I couldn't get to it. But next year, be expecting that. But anyway, even though it was way harder than I anticipated to narrow it down just to only 10 games, against all odds, I was able to do it. Before we jump into the actual list, let's lay down some rules. Also, ignore me installing Ghost of Tsushima in the back. I'm very excited. Anyway, rules. Rule number 1, no franchise repeats. Number 2, any game that I played from December 2020 to November 2021 is qualified to be on this list. Number 3, games that did not come out in 2021 are allowed to be on this list if I experienced them in 2021. And finally, this list is entirely my opinion, so please be respectful of that if you do not agree with what I say. With all that said, let's go ahead and jump into this. These are the 10 best games that I played during 2021. or rather the very end of 2020 into the slightly before the very end of 2021. That does not have as good of a ring to it as top 10 games of 2021, does it? And even then, it's not even my top 10 games of 2021. It's the top 10 games that I played in 2021. Most of the games on this list they didn't even come out in 2021. I am not selling this. I'm just gonna move on.
Despite me being a huge fan of the original Xenoblade Chronicles, I never played the other two games. Well, I have played about 30 minutes of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, but I don't think that really counts. But this was the year that I actually gave the technical but not official sequel to Xenoblade Chronicles a shot. And after playing it for a very large amount of time, I can confirm that this is probably the best Xenoblade gameplay-wise. I still prefer the first one for a mix of narrative and nostalgia, and of course the gameplay is also really good. But Xenoblade Chronicles X takes everything great about the first game's gameplay and just expands upon it, especially the exploration. In the first game, the world was huge, and definitely one of the most impressive things to ever be done on the way, beaten only by the Angry Birds Star Wars port. How did they do it? I don't know. But Xenoblade Chronicles X's world is not only bigger than the first game's, and more beautiful, might I add, but the amount of things that you can actually do in that world is way larger. Traversal is the name of the game, and the main tool you'll use to do this traversing is... You can jump ridiculously high in this game so you can get up to higher locations. This contrasts the far more vertical world in this game very well, in my opinion. Now, I do have yet to beat this game, or even get a Scowl, so I suppose my thoughts could change, but if the ending is as good and mind-blowing as everybody says, I will be a very happy penguin. Oh yeah, also, the refined combat is also pretty cool, I guess. Last year was the year that I finally played a Pikmin game, Pikmin 3 to be specific. After realizing that Pikmin 3 is one of the best games I've ever played, and that it is probably in my all-time top 10, I decided that I needed to play the other games in this series very badly. So this year I went back to the very first game in this series, Pikmin. I've noticed that Pikmin is one of those franchises where people's favorite game in the series could be literally any of them. The second game is probably the most beloved one overall. Tragically, I have yet to play it, but hopefully next year. But Pikmin 3 is seen as the most refined Pikmin game. Now, last year after playing Pikmin 3, I knew I needed more Pikmin, as I said before. So in April of this year, I ended up getting the very first game in the series. People who like this game usually praise it for the time limit and the overall charm. However, while this game is extremely charming, the time limit to me is neither a positive nor a negative thing. Similar to Majora's Mask, which is still one of my all-time favorite games, like top 5, the time limit is just as cool as it is annoying. But Majora utilizes the mechanic in a very interesting and gameplay-enhancing way. Pikmin's time limit, in my opinion, just exists to dramatize the story and tone, which it actually does very, very well. Throughout the whole game, you feel this pressure to collect all the parts so Olimar can escape. But you also feel calm and collected because of the satisfying gameplay loop and the enchanting music. Other than that, though, I feel like I have nothing else to say. I still do prefer 3 because the management of Pikmin is light years better, and there is far more variety. But I still found the first Pikmin game to be one of the very best games I played in the year 2021. As I stated last year, my first Paper Mario game was Color Splash, and I also stated last year that it was one of my least favorite games I played last year. Not because it was bad at all, in fact, I think it's a pretty decent game overall. The only reason I considered it to be one of the worst games I played last year was because of pure disappointment. Now keep in mind when I tell you this, I did not know the Paper Mario formula changed after the 1,000-Year Door. I heard so many things about the Paper Mario games, and so when I saw Color Splash on sale for $12, I had to buy it. But after only 1 hour with the game, I began to realize that the gameplay and characters weren't as Paper Mario-y, as I thought. But after doing some research, I found out that the first two Paper Mario games were exactly what I was hoping for. Since Thousand Year Door costs that, I decided to give the first Paper Mario game a try. I will be attempting, keyword attempting, to play Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door next year, but for now, let me sum up what I like about the first Paper Mario so much. The combat is some of the most engaging and fun combat in any RPG I've played. This game took everything I loved about Super Mario RPG and expanded upon it. And the game is just timeless in both its humor and its visuals. This game is pretty much better than Super Mario RPG in like every way. Except the music. Paper Mario is good, but it can't top RPG's music in my opinion. But still, this game is one of the absolute best games on the Nintendo 64, and with it on Switch now, it will be very nice to see exactly what people have been missing all of these years. Last year was the year that I played my very first life sim game, in Animal Crossing New Horizons. And while I did play every other mainline Animal Crossing other than City Folk, none of them clicked with me on the same level as New Horizons. Enter Stardew Valley, which has, despite me only owning it for like a month, consumed hours of my time. Unlike New Horizons, I actually understand the constant comparisons to Minecraft with this game because it actually has quite a few similarities to Minecraft. There's a very in-depth mining aspect to the game, combat system, farming, building, and of course crafting. Does that mean it's like Minecraft? No. Don't get me wrong, this game's got both the mine and the craft, but don't be fooled. This game is so much more than just a Minecraft clone. Which it's not. The games can have similar and/or identical features, and that doesn't make it a different version of that game. But I'd say it's actually pretty much equal to Minecraft, maybe slightly better. The main thing to me, at least, that differentiates this game from Minecraft is the in-game community aspect. There's an entire town with dozens of well-written and lively characters. Even someone who would be useless in another game like the shopkeepers have their own aspirations and daily routines. Every character in this game has at least one character trait that another has, but that's actually a good thing in my opinion because it makes this world feel more real. Not every character needs to have their own completely different personality aspect. In the real world, there are thousands of emo people, there are thousands of dorks, there are thousands of sorority girl people. For a game with a beautiful pixel art style, it's shocking just how immersed you can get in this realistic world. This is also one of those games that you'll say, I'm gonna play Stardew Valley for a bit. And then you sit down, play it, and like 5 years pass by. Stardew Valley is easily one of the finest indie games I played this year, and I have absolutely no doubt that I will be playing it a lot into the new year. I actually remember when I was younger, there were two series I always watched videos on. The first being Halo, which I've played and beaten almost all the games in that series. And the second was none other than Mass Effect. This year I was lucky enough to play not only Mass Effect 2, but also the first game. And while the first game is really great, Mass Effect 2 is the best possible sequel we could have gotten. After playing this game and experiencing the surprisingly clean combat, I found it near impossible to play the first game. I did end up playing it and enjoying it, but to me Mass Effect 2 takes all the best parts from the first game and just expanded upon it. The story's more grand, the gameplay is more refined, the set design is even more amazing, the soundtrack is synth-heavy and rad, and the visuals and graphics are what most people would call acceptable. But what makes this game so good to me, other than the quality of life improvements, are the real and believable characters. The first game had some phenomenal characters, but this game expands on many of the characters from the first game and adds even more. I'd have to say my second favorite of the new characters is either Jacob or Miranda. And I know people are going to say that the only reason they're my second favorites are because they're the first two characters you meet. And while that probably is part of it, I think that they're just both impeccably written characters. However, my favorite character in this game has got to be Morden, dude. The dude acts like he's literally on every drug that's ever existed. He'll be talking, just giving you simple instructions and be like, he'll literally just tell you how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Be like, oh yeah, you get the knife and then you do, and then he's done. Like, that's it. Oh, dude, I love Morden. I played through this game 3 times with a new character every single time. The first time I modeled my character after myself, and I named him Dallas, of course. The second time I named him Penguino, and the character you're seeing right now is Penguino's twin sister, Penguette, who I also used in Mass Effect for my second playthrough. Just creating your own character backstories can be fun. Mass Effect 2 is one of the best RPGs I played all year. I'm mad at myself. I am mad at myself for not putting this game at least number 3. But unfortunately, there were a few games that I played for the first time this year that I liked more. But I don't think there was a video game story I experienced for the first time this year that I enjoyed quite as much as Bioshock Infinite's. One word: Elizabeth. Well, I guess that's a name, but whatever. Elizabeth is now easily in my top 10 favorite video game characters of all time. Honestly, maybe even top 5. At first, I loved her just because of how freaking adorable she is. She's so clueless and so happy and excited about everything. But as time went on, I began to realize how amazingly they were developing her, how interesting the obstacles she had to overcome was, and how invested I was in her. Not to mention Booker DeWitt, who is not only the perfect contrast to Elizabeth, but is easily one of the best protagonists I've experienced in a video game so far. Booker is selfish and brash, but as time goes on, Elizabeth's company softens him a bit. And the ending. The ending! I won't spoil it, but I will say that my mind has still not recovered from it. Also, the gameplay is just super solid. All the abilities Booker acquires throughout the game are versatile, and a lot of fun to use. The Shock Jockey was definitely the most useful, but the Undertow was so much fun to use. To just slap people and watch them fall off cliffs. I am really sadistic. Now you might be thinking, if you love this game so much, why is it not higher on the list? While this game is extremely fun, it can get a little bit repetitive. But tools like the Skyhook and the Vigors are more than enough to make this game more than a fun time. But unfortunately, that does not take away from the repetitive nature of its gameplay. In conclusion, Bioshock Infinite is a game for people who love experiencing phenomenal stories in video games, and even just casual first-person shooter fans will enjoy this game. I know quite a few people would have expected this to be like number 1, but you're gonna have to settle on it being here. After 19 years of diddly squat on an original 2D Metroid game, Nintendo shook the internet by announcing not only a 2D Metroid game, not only Metroid 5, but Metroid Dread, a long-forgotten project that was seemingly gonna remain an idea for the rest of time. I, along every other Metroid fan, was ecstatic to see this.
No, that wasn't the entire Metroid.
I've never seen something about Metroid.
Wait, what?
But today, we'd like to introduce another new entry in the Metroid franchise.
Oh! Yes! Come on! Please! Please!
No, it better
Oh my god! No way! They're not gonna do another Metroid. Wait. What? What is this? Metroid. 5! What? No way!
It reminds me of that
Metroid 5! Metroid Dread! Oh my god, this is the project that they were—
In fact, I was so excited that I, for the first time ever, bought a game on day 1. Before playing this game, I made an oath not to use any guides whatsoever. No matter how lost I was going to beat this game completely on my own. And that's exactly what I did. No guides, no help, nothing. And I am so glad that I did that. Discovery, exploration, and atmosphere are this game's main strengths. As you wander the many areas in this game, you are bound to find hundreds of things, whether something small or one of the best surprises ever in a game that I have experienced as a boss fight. All I'll say is that a familiar face returned in a hard-as-nails boss fight that just rules. Like, I was just wandering and I found it out of nowhere. It was awesome. It took me like a dozen tries. But when I finally beat it, I jumped for joy. I basked in the blood of spoiler character here. The exploration is an absolute joy because of just how gorgeous this game is. I am shocked and heavily pleased just how much detail was in this world. I won't go into too much detail, but all I'll say is graphics good. And that delicious atmosphere. Oh, that delectable atmosphere. Once again, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I will say that this game uses tension and fear unlike any other Nintendo-made game I have played, and it is absolutely exhilarating. Metroid Dread, as the first game I ever bought on day one, did not disappoint, and I cannot wait to play it many, many more times in the year 2022. Alright, go ahead, leave the comment. I don't care. Despite the negative reception these games get for their success, I am not afraid to state my opinion that both Undertale and Deltarune are genuinely beautiful, and all of the games are so good that I had a hard time choosing between them since I played all of them this year. Now, since Deltarune Chapter 2 actually released this year, I am going to be talking about it instead of the others. Also, I think it's my favorite. The first chapter is definitely my least favorite of the three games, so that's why too. But Undertale is a different story. I think the game is fantastic, and I probably like it around the same amount as Chapter 2. But I'm gonna go with Chapter 2 instead. So let's talk about the second chapter of Deltarune. After the first chapter's pacing issues, it was really nice to see the sequel not follow in its footsteps. This game took all the bad parts from the first chapter and made them good, and made all of the good elements better. The story was somehow better than the original. Very happy almost the whole way through, and very funny. Birdly was easily my favorite character. In terms of humor, oh man, he is truly a gamer. But the best part of both Deltarune chapters, to me, are the endings. Deltarune so far has not been nearly as emotional as Undertale. It's been far more consistent with its humor and lighter tone, but all of that changes during the last scene of each game. The first chapter's ending was heartbreaking, to say the least. It was a reminder that even though you just had a very fun time, it is not going to stay that way. But Chapter 2's ending made me quite literally shed a tear. I will be covering why the endings are so incredible in my Deltarune Chapters 1 and 2 videos. But for now, Chapter 2 is such a great time, with such lovable characters, a soundtrack that will either make you dance or cry, and an ending that will definitely make you cry. Toby Fox, you've written one of my new all-time favorite video game endings, and you've made one of the best indie games I have ever played. I got this game for Christmas, alongside these other ones. However, due to me getting these so late in the year, I'm going to be putting these on next year's list instead. But I am making an exception for Resident Evil 8 for two reasons. One, it actually came out this year unlike the others, and most of the games on this list. And two, I did actually experience this game earlier this year.
After playing Resident Evil 4 earlier this year, I could not wait to get my hands on Resident Evil Village. However, I did want to wait until I got a PS4 so I didn't have to play it on the Xbox. Hey, it's done!
Resident Evil 4 was originally supposed to be on this list, and it is still better than most of the games on this list. However, there are no franchise repeats allowed on this list, and I think between the two, I enjoyed Resident Evil 8 more than I did 4. To me, Village is quite literally just 4, but better. One of my favorite parts of Resident Evil 4 was how tense it could get. Low ammo counts, enemies chasing you, Chainsaw Boy. And thankfully, this game doesn't just have it like 4. It does it better than 4 in my opinion. The first-person perspective enhances immersion by a lot, which obviously makes those tense situations where you're low on ammo and junk far more tense. And this game is scary. Like, really scary. It was actually a very pleasant surprise after finishing 4 earlier this year, which was pretty much just a survival horror game minus the actual horror. Fingers pointed at the second villains area. I won't spoil anything, but I will say that very soon over on Spectrum, we're going to be doing a little game room podcast on that part of the game. Yet another thing I loved about this game is my new favorite morbidly obese salesman, the Duke. He's at least top 5. This is the first time since Resident Evil 4 that we've actually had a merchant character in Resident Evil. And I absolutely loved what this dumpling of a man had to offer. In fact, he's actually an integral part of the story, which was a very nice surprise. The new cooking mechanic, the villains, the atmosphere, the gameplay. Oh my god, I love this game so much. Resident Evil Village gets my pick for the best game that actually came out in the year 2021. But alas, there was one game that beat it as my favorite game I played this year.
Ori and the Blind Forest is perfect. That's my opening.
I've always been of the opinion that there is no such thing as a perfect thing. And while I do still support this idea, I am not afraid to say that Ori and the Blind Forest is the closest to perfection you can possibly get in entertainment. Every frame, every pixel is flawless. This is by far and away, not even close, the best looking game I have ever played in my life. This is a living painting with hundreds, nay millions of layers. Every single frame of this game tells a story. Every little detail has a purpose. All of it is just perfect. The story is simple on the surface, but it is so much more. I won't spoil it, but all you need to know is that it is, you guessed it, perfect. The gameplay, the movement, it all feels perfect. This might just be the best feeling game I have ever played in my entire life. Every single ability feels fine-tuned to be the best it can possibly be. The way Ori controls is... No, wrong Ori. The way that Ori controls is smoother and more nimble than any other video game character I have ever played as. The combat isn't even the main focus, and yet it's still so in-depth. And of course, the soundtrack. Ori and the Blind Forest has my favorite soundtrack of all time. There is not one bad song in this soundtrack, in my opinion. Every single song in this game means something to me. This game is truly something special, and I can safely say that Ori and the Blind Forest is not only the best indie game this year, not only the best game I have played this year, but the best game I have ever played, period.
I did not expect this game to not only enter my top 10, not only enter my top 5, but my top 2 favorite games of all time. This game was incredible. Thank you all so much for watching, and I can't wait for next year's top 10. These are easily one of the most excited, this is like the most excited I get to do a video every year, because I love making these top 10 videos. So can't wait for next year's, because next year's is going to be crazy. Alright, there we go. I'm done. I'm out. I'm out! Ark out. I'm out. I'm out. I'm freaking out!